The rule modern builders forgot. You know, modern construction treats wood like a dead product. Cut it, dry it fast, force it into place, lock it down with metal and move on. But ancient builders knew better. They understood that wood never stops moving. It never becomes inert. Every beam carries the memory of how it grew, the slope it faced, the seasons it endured, and the moisture it learned to breathe. Ignore that memory, and, well, the structure pays the price later. The timber storage rule was built on one idea. Wood must be paired with wood that lived the same life. When beams share the same biological rhythm, they move together instead of against each other. When they don't, tension builds slowly and relentlessly until eventually something gives. Why wood bends even when you think it shouldn't? Wood is hygroscopic, which means it constantly absorbs and releases moisture from the air. That process never stops. What really matters is how uneven that movement is. Along the grain, wood barely changes length. Across the grain, it moves dramatically, especially along the curved growth rings. This imbalance is why boards cup, twist and bow even when they look perfectly dry. Ancient carpenters didn't fight this behavior. They predicted it. They oriented beams so their movement cancelled out instead of compounding. When two pieces were joined, their grain patterns were mirrored or matched, so both would bend the same way at the same time. Stability didn't come from rigidity. It came from synchronized motion. The mountain mattered more than the tree. Traditional builders didn't just select trees, they selected landscapes. You see, a tree growing on a cold north slope develops dense, tight grain and slow movement. But one growing on a warm south slope grows faster with wider rings and is more responsive to humidity. Mixing those two in the same structure was seen as a mistake, not a coincidence. North slope timber belonged on the north side of the building. South slope timber belonged on the south. That alignment allowed each beam to continue behaving exactly as it had in the forest. When the building breathed, it breathed evenly. That single choice eliminated decades of internal stress. Why winter mattered more than tools? Timing the cut was as important as choosing the tree. Winter-felled timber dries differently. When a tree is dormant, sap retreats, sugars drop, and internal moisture stabilizes. Cut during that season, the wood seasons slowly and predictably. Cut during summer, the trapped sap invites decay and violent drying that cracks the timber from the inside. This wasn't a superstition. Builders learned it by watching failures, you see. Winter wood resisted rot, insects and warping without chemical treatment. That alone extended the lifespan of structures by generations. Storage was, well, part of construction. Ancient builders never rushed wood into service. Beams were stacked with spacers, raised off the ground, protected from direct sun and rain, and left to acclimate for months or even years. Wood was allowed to learn its new environment before being forced into joints. Modern kiln drying only sets a starting point, really. The environment finishes the job. Build too soon, and every joint becomes a gamble. Why metal ruins living joints? One of the most destructive modern habits is locking living wood to immovable materials. Steel doesn't shrink. Wood always does. Over time, that mismatch crushes fibres, loosens joints, and splits beams. Ancient builders avoided metal, not because they lacked it, but because they understood its consequences. Wooden pegs made from the same forest dried and tightened alongside the beams they held. Structures didn't weaken with age, they hardened into themselves. Two buildings, two outcomes. Replace an old oak beam with a fresh pine one and bolt it in place, and the clock starts ticking. The oak has finished moving. The pine hasn't. Steel refuses to yield. Within years, the joint fails. Not dramatically, but inevitably. Now, compare that with structures where every beam shared the same history, dried together, moved together, and aged together. Those buildings didn't resist time. They matured with it. Applying the rule today. You don't need a temple or a mountain forest to apply this knowledge. You need attention. Study grain. Match movement. Let wood acclimate. Avoid trapping it. Design joints that allow breathing instead of forbidding it. When you stop forcing wood into obedience and start working with its nature, projects stop failing mysteriously. The material stops fighting back. The timber storage rule isn't just about carpentry, it's about relationship. The ancient builders didn't dominate their materials, they cooperated with them, and that cooperation is why their work outlived empires. The next time wood cracks in the night, it isn't random. It's a conversation you didn't know you were having. If this kind of lost knowledge matters to you, subscribe to History Prime, share this video with someone who loves history or building, and leave a comment below. Your stories keep this knowledge alive. Until next time, build humbly, observe carefully, and let the materials speak.